What was the best temporary card in Clash Royale history? Was it the absolutely broken Super Mini Pekka that could one-shot your entire push? Or maybe the Super Magic Archer that literally turned your troops against you? Well, that's what we're gonna find out in this video. We're going through every single temporary card that Supercell has ever added to the game, and we'll rank them all from S tier to F tier based on how much the community actually liked them. And without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with the very first temporary cards ever added to Clash Royale. Bo and Shelly came from the Brawl Stars crossover in December 2018. This was Supercell's first attempt at doing temporary cards, and honestly, it was just sad. Bo was literally just a reskin Magic Archer, and Shelly was a reskin Hunter. That's it. No new mechanics, no interesting interactions, just different skins slapped on existing cards. You played them exactly like Magic Archer and Hunter, nothing changed at all. The community was hyped at first because a crossover between two Supercell games sounded cool, but then everyone realized it was completely pointless. The novelty wore off in about 5 minutes. People were disappointed because Supercell had the chance to do something creative with a crossover and they just changed the textures and called it a day. This is what happens when you make a temporary card that doesn't actually add anything new to the game, just boring cosmetic stuff that nobody cared about after the first match. Bo and Shelly were pointless reskins that disappointed everyone, so they go straight into F tier. Fast forward to 2022 and Supercell decided to try temporary cards again with the Super Cards concept. Super Lava Hound was technically the first one, and it was underwhelming as hell. It cost 8 elixir instead of 7, and when it died, it split into 2 smaller lava hounds that then split into pups. It also had some death damage thrown in there. Sounds cool on paper, right? Except it played exactly like regular Lava Hound. You still just threw it in the back, built a push behind it, and hoped your opponent didn't have Inferno Tower. The splitting pattern was slightly different, but it didn't change how you actually used the card or how your opponent countered it. The community reaction was pretty negative. Everyone expected something more interesting from the first super card. Instead, it was just a stat-buffed version of a card that already existed. The reception was super mixed, with most people saying it felt like a missed opportunity. You countered it the same way with Inferno Tower or high DPS air troops, and it didn't add any new decisions to the game. Just more stats for 1 more elixir. Super Lava Hound was underwhelming and didn't change the gameplay at all, so it goes into D tier. Super Witch came out in May 2022 and tried to combine all 3 witches in the game. She spawned skeletons and bats alternately, and she had Mother Witch's curse effect that turned dead troops into hogs. Plus, she had way more health than regular witch. The idea was actually pretty cool. Combining 3 different witch mechanics into one card could have been interesting, but the execution was just a little weird. She still just played like a tanky witch that you placed behind your tank and hoped it connected. The curse effect was neat, but it didn't really change how you used her. Plus, she was super vulnerable to rockets, which traded positively with her since she cost 7 elixir. A lot of people felt like this was just Supercell's way of giving players a usable witch again, since regular witch sucked at the time. The community thought it was fine but not exciting. It felt like a stopgap card that didn't really push any creative boundaries. People wanted to see her switch between ranged and melee attacks when enemies got close, or something interesting like that, but nope, just a buffed witch with extra summons, nothing game-changing. Super Witch felt like a missed opportunity and didn't excite the community, so it goes into D tier. Oh boy, now we're talking. Super Mini Pekka came out in July 2022 and this thing was absolutely insane. It cost 5 elixir, moved fast, and had one extremely important feature. It could one-shot literally everything in the game. Towers, tanks, swarms, everything. One hit, dead. It also spawned healing pancakes every few seconds that healed itself and nearby troops. But that wasn't even the main attraction. The one-shot mechanic completely changed how matches played out. If you got Super Mini Pekka to the tower with any kind of support, you just won. Defensive tanks were worthless because it one-shot them. Mega Knight, dead. Golem, dead. Pekka, dead in one swing. The only counters were swarms like skeleton army or guards, but even those were risky, because if it got countered, you were cooked. The community reaction? People thought it was hilariously overpowered and they absolutely loved it. It was one of the wildest temporary cards ever, and perfectly toy-like for a challenge. This is exactly what temporary cards should allow. Outrageous, memorable experiences that would never be balanced for ladder. In Supercell's year-end player survey, Super Mini Pekka was rated as players' favorite temporary card of 2022. Everyone has a story about getting one-shot by this thing or somehow managing to defend it with perfect swarm timing. It was broken as hell, and that's exactly why it was so fun. Pure chaos, pure entertainment. The community loved how hilariously overpowered Super Mini Pekka was, so it goes into S tier. Barbarian Launcher came out in August 2022, and it's one of the most creative temporary cards ever. Imagine a mortar, but instead of firing rocks, it launches barbarians every 3 seconds. That's it. Cost 5 elixir, instead of mortars 4. Swapping projectiles for troops made this feel completely fresh, even though the concept was based on mortar. It forced continuous responses from your opponent because barbarians kept coming. It was great at pinning down single-target attackers and controlling space on your side of the arena. And here's the important part. It wasn't outright broken, which is super rare for temporary cards. You could counter it with cheap spells to kill the spawn barbarians, or you could pressure hard to prevent the spawns from stacking up. Direct damage buildings worked too. It was strong but fair. The community loved it. Like, really loved it. This is one of the most liked temporary cards in Clash Royale history. People praised it for being unique, interactive, and not frustrating to play against. Supercell even brought it back later because of how popular it was. It shows that changing just one core mechanic can make a familiar concept feel brand new. People still ask for Barbarian Launcher to become a permanent card, and it kinda got implemented with the Mortar evolution. Just instead of barbarians, we got goblins. Barbarian Launcher was loved by everyone and brought back by popular demand, so it goes into S tier. Santa Hog Rider came out for Christmas 2022, and it was chaos in card form. It was basically Hog Rider, but he dropped presents every 3 seconds. When friendly troops walked through the presents, they triggered a random spell: Rage, Clone, Heal, or Invisibility. The RNG element was super polarizing. Your pushes could completely snowball if you got lucky with Clone or Rage, or they could flop if you got bad spell spawns. It was completely unpredictable. Casual players absolutely loved the chaos. You never knew what was going to happen. Getting Clone on a big push felt amazing. Getting Heal on a solo Hog Rider felt terrible. But that unpredictability was part of the fun. Competitive players hated it though. The randomness made consistent counterplay basically impossible. You couldn't plan your defense properly because you didn't know which spells would spawn. Some pros said it was one of the most frustrating temporary cards to play seriously. But here's the thing, most of the community thought it was fun. Yeah, it was random, but that's what made it entertaining for casual modes. The clone interactions especially were absolutely nuts. You could counter it with standard hog counters plus quick spell denial and board clears, but the RNG kept every match feeling different. It was chaotic and unpredictable, which is exactly what a temporary card should be for fun challenges. Santa Hog Rider was fun for most players despite the RNG complaints, so it's going into B tier. Super Ice Golem came out in January 2023, and it had one of the most unique mechanics ever. It cost 4 elixir, moved super slow, had massive health, and when it died, it froze the entire arena for 4 seconds. Yes, the entire arena. King Tower, Princess Towers, all troops on both sides, everything. The global freeze was a mechanic nobody had seen before. Imagine your entire push getting frozen just because this thing died, or freezing the enemy's entire defense when your push arrived. It had insane tempo potential. The problem was, the Ice Golem was so goddamn slow that it often didn't reach anywhere important before dying. The freeze effect was cool, but the pacing killed it. You'd place it, and then wait forever for it to waddle across the arena, and if it died too early, the freeze didn't help much. You countered it with high single-target DPS and ranged killers. Just kill it before it reaches your tower, and the freeze doesn't matter as much. Decks built around heavy damage could burst it down pretty easily. Reception was mixed. Some people loved the chaos of freezing everything on the map, others hated how slow and clunky it felt to actually use. It was mechanically interesting but frustrating in practice. If it moved faster, it would have been way more popular, but the extreme slowness made it less fun than it should have been. Super Ice Golem had a cool mechanic but was too slow and clunky, so it goes into B tier. Super Magic Archer came out in February 2023, and this is it. The best temporary card ever made, hands down. Super Magic Archer fired projectiles that traveled through enemies just like regular Magic Archer. But here's the twist. Every troop hit got converted to your side. The enemy's troops would start attacking their own towers and their own teammates. And it gets even better. He could convert Princess Towers temporarily. Not the King Tower, that was immune. But Princess Towers would switch sides and start attacking their owner. The battlefield became complete chaos, with troops switching teams mid-fight, towers betraying their owner, and friendly fire everywhere. This created the most bizarre interactions anyone had ever seen. Imagine playing a golem push, and suddenly your golem is walking backwards, attacking your own tower. Or placing Pekka for defense and watching it get converted and march toward your King Tower. Every match was memorable because you never knew what crazy conversion was about to happen. You countered it with high HP distractions and area control to avoid key conversions or spells to eliminate troops before they got hit. But even when you knew how to counter it, the interactions were still wild. The community absolutely loved this card. Content creators went insane over it because it produced the most unexpected, hilarious moments. People made compilation videos of the craziest conversions. Super Magic Archer was so good that people still talk about it and beg Supercell to bring it back. It's the gold standard for temporary cards. The community absolutely loved Super Magic Archer, and it's the best temporary card ever made, so it goes straight into S tier. Party Hut came out in March 2023, and it was super creative. This was a hybrid building that combined multiple card types. It fired projectiles like an X-bow, had the lifespan and HP of Goblin Hut, and when it died, it spawned a Goblin Brawler plus a bunch of regular goblins. This thing could act as both siege and spawn building. You could use it defensively to hold a lane or offensively to pressure. It bridged two completely different playstyles in one card, which made it super versatile. You countered it with high damage spells like Rocket, or you could pressure hard to destroy it before the spawns accumulated. Direct targeting troops worked too. But the versatility made it tricky to deal with because you never knew exactly how your opponent would use it. The community loved it. It didn't feel like a buff to an existing building. It felt like a genuinely new card with its own identity and role. People said it was one of the most creative temporary cards because it combined unrelated mechanics from different cards into something coherent and useful. Combining attributes from different card types to create a new role is exactly how you design interesting temporary content. Party Hut nailed it. It felt fresh and gave you new strategic options without being frustratingly overpowered. Party Hut was creative and loved by the community, so it goes into A tier. Party Rocket came out the same month as Party Hut. This was a spell with huge radius that cost less than regular Rocket. It converted all affected troops into goblins, and here's the twist. It alternated which side's troops got converted, so you had to be super careful about timing and positioning. The conversion mechanic forced you to think way more than regular spells. If you threw it at the wrong time, you could convert your own troops and screw yourself over. If you timed it perfectly, you could convert an entire push into goblins and completely flip the tempo of a match. You countered it by avoiding clustering your troops and baiting the conversions. The timing windows were everything. It was inefficient for steady elixir trades, but devastating if used at the right moment. The community liked it because it rewarded skill and timing. You had to actually think about when and where to use it. One bad Party Rocket could lose you the game. One perfect Party Rocket could win it. The decision-making made it way more interesting than most other spells. People wanted more spells like this that changed the board state in creative ways instead of just dealing damage. Party Rocket rewarded skilled play, and the community appreciated that, so it goes into A tier. Super Archers came out in April 2023. They cost 3 elixir just like regular archers, but they had double the health, splash damage, and their attacks pushed back enemies. They also had attack recoil, so they'd get pushed back slightly when they shot. The pushback mechanic was super strong, like way too strong. They could push back almost anything continuously, which made them insane on defense. You could place them, and they'd just keep shoving enemy troops backwards while dealing splash damage. But because of how good they were, the meta collapsed into just a few deck archetypes that exploited the pushback. There wasn't much variety in how you played them. You just spammed the same interactions over and over. You countered them with heavy tanks that could survive the splash damage and push through, or extremely high-rate single-target DPS that could kill them before the pushback mattered. Mass swarms worked too if you spread them out. The community thought they were powerful, but got boring fast. They were a spectacle at first, but everyone quickly realized the gameplay was super monotonous. Same pushback interactions every match. Good that it was temporary because it would have been terrible for the meta long term, but not that fun after the novelty wore off. Super Archers were powerful but got boring quickly, so they go into C tier. Terry was the first champion in Clash Royale. He was a more powerful version of the Hog Rider that came out in May 2023. He had more health than regular Hog and a special ability. You could pay 1 elixir to make him jump and deal AoE damage when he landed. The active ability was novel and added a timing skill element. You had to decide when to use the jump for maximum value. Jump too early and you waste elixir. Jump at the right time and you could take out defensive troops. But Terry didn't really change anything about how you played Hog decks. It was just Hog Rider with an optional ability. You countered him with standard Hog counters plus preemptive small spells to disrupt the jump window. The community was okay with it, but nobody was asking for it to come back. It was fine as a test for the champion rarity for the future, but it was not memorable. People recognized that it was just a test and not anything serious. Terry was fine but forgettable, so it goes into C tier. Warmth spell came out in December 2023 during the Snowstorm Challenge. This cost 1 elixir and unfroze troops on the snowy map. It also provided a small heal in a radius. This card was specifically designed for an environment with new rules. The Snowstorm Challenge had global freeze mechanics that constantly slowed down your troops. Warmth gave you a tool to counter that and keep your troops moving. It enabled completely new strategies that only worked in that special environment. You couldn't really counter Warmth because it was environment-specific utility. It existed to solve a problem that didn't exist in normal Clash Royale. The community absolutely loved this. People praised it as one of the best uses of temporary cards ever. Warmth changed the rules of the game and gave you ways to adapt. Environment-specific tools that enable new strategies are exactly what temporary cards should do. Warmth spell was praised as one of the best uses of temporary cards, so it goes into A tier. Wizard Trio came out in May 2024. This deployed all 3 wizards at once for 7 elixir: Ice Wizard, Electro Wizard, and Regular Wizard. Normally that would be 12 elixir worth of troops. They had instant deploy with no 1-second delay, and some spells were banned in that challenge. Getting 12 elixir worth of troops for 7 sounds insane, and it was. The immediate board impact was huge. Drop them on defense, and suddenly you have 3 splash damage dealers covering different roles. But the synergy between the 3 wizards was kind of inconsistent. Their effects overlapped weirdly, and it didn't always feel coherent. Ice Wizard slows, Electro Wizard stuns, Regular Wizard just does damage. Together they're strong but not exactly synergistic in a meaningful way. You countered them with high single target DPS that could focus 1 wizard at a time, or anti-air setups that spread damage across all 3. The banned spell design choices in that challenge shaped the counterplay too. Reception was mixed. People liked the concept of seeing all 3 wizards together, but felt like the execution needed work. The wizards needed more complementary mechanics to make the synergy feel intentional, instead of just throwing 3 guys down at once. Wizard Trio had a cool concept but inconsistent execution, so it goes into C tier. And now we need to talk about the worst temporary card ever made. Rocket Silo came out in July 2024, and it was absolutely hated by the community. It cost 7 elixir and was a building. After about 13 seconds, it would launch itself at the enemy king tower, dealing absurd damage. Like, massive damage with no crown tower reduction. 4 rocket silos could completely destroy the king tower and win the game. Sounds okay in theory, but here's the problem. Gameplay just collapsed into cycling as fast as possible to spam rocket silos. Whoever could cycle faster won. Matches weren't about strategy, interaction, or skill. They were about who could place more rockets faster. The counters were super awkward too. Monk could block the rocket with his ability if timed perfectly, but then people had to use Tornado and Freeze to counter the Monk, which created this weird rock-paper-scissors meta that nobody enjoyed. The windows to counter it were extremely tight and felt luck-based. The community largely hated it. People said it was one of the worst game modes of all time. Reddit threads were full of complaints. The fast-paced nature meant matches were over quickly, but there was no strategic depth. It encouraged cycling and removed meaningful mid-game decisions. Rocket Silo made matches feel like a race instead of a battle. When it was removed from the game, people celebrated. Rocket Silo was hated by everyone and is the worst temporary card ever made, so it goes straight into F tier. Super Knight came out in September 2024 and had one wild mechanic. When he wasn't attacking, he reduced all damage to himself and nearby allies to just 1 damage per hit. Fireballs, rockets, everything, just 1 damage. Any troops behind him became basically unkillable, but the ability turned off once he started attacking. So you countered him by distracting him with cheap troops to deactivate the protection, then killing him with high DPS. The community thought it was interesting but not amazing. The damage reduction was creative, and building protected pushes was fun, but matches got a bit repetitive. It was a cool defensive mechanic, but not memorable enough to stand out. Super Knight had an interesting gimmick but didn't blow people away, so it goes into B tier. After going through all of these, the pattern is pretty clear. The best temporary cards introduce new mechanics and interactions that make you play differently. Super Magic Archer's conversion, Barbarian Launcher's troop spawning, Super Mini Pekka's ridiculous one-shot power, Party Hut's hybrid role. These cards didn't just add stats, they added new decisions and strategies. The worst temporary cards are either just reskins with no new gameplay, or stat buffs without new interactions, or worst of all, cards that remove interaction entirely and make the game less fun. Temporary cards should let Supercell experiment with wild mechanics that would break the game long-term but are incredible for short challenges. They should create memorable moments and force you to think about the game differently. When done right, they're some of the most fun content in Clash Royale. Alright, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments which temporary card you think was the best, and if you agree with my tier list, make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you soon.